It's been a year, hasn't it?
Thank goodness for the animated features of this year, because regardless of how they are, they help get us through an absolutely maddening year. The global economy's been out of whack because of pointless tariffs from the US, AI's trying to force itself into our lives without the consent of anyone, billionaires have fully exposed themselves as the true enemy of the people, white Christian nationalism and hate speech are normalized in mainstream conservatism, and the damage they cause makes them equally as bad and illegal as pedophilia, and even when you try to escape the real-world issues to your entertainment, fandoms will be sure to ruin it for you as they've become more unbearable than ever. Seriously, even within my field, over the years that I've been doing this, the cartoon community was never as worse as they've been nowadays.
Yeah, it's one of those where the world around you makes this a "I'm just glad it's over" years. But with all the animated films that we got in 2025, they had some chaos of their own, sure, but these ones have been mostly manageable as we got our fair share of greats and trash.
And it was quite a memorable time, since some of the biggest animated movies of this decade so far came from this one year, thus making it more competitive than ever to get at the top to be the greatest. But at the same time, those that flopped came out as some of the year's most significant bombs with critics and audiences. But if we're about to pick which ones are either the best or the worst, get ready to discover some unexpected choices.
And I do mean unexpected, because unlike the previous times where I just include the ones that I've reviewed throughout the years, I've also been watching animated features that I haven't fully looked into in preparation for this list, including some indie movies, so you'll never know what will come up on these lists. I'm Animat, and welcome to the top 5 best and worst animated films of 2025.
How it's done, done, done.
Number 5.
Worst.
Fixed. It's no surprise that the most hated animated movie of the year would find itself on the worst list. And I do mean that this was hated. Because regardless if animation fans knew about this project for years, ever since that trailer came out, it was faced with massive outrage to the point that animators would get harassed on social media just for mentioning that they worked on it, and even get accused of ruining 2D animation forever and promoting bestiality.
And some people still think that I'm the Sony animation hater? You should see the rest of the cartoon community, especially those that are still on Twitter. They have no chill whatsoever.
Safe to say that this was the most overhated animated movie of the year, especially when there are some good things to note about Fixed. The animation is well done, some of the voice acting like Adam Devine, Idris Elba, and Catherine Hahn is fantastic, and its message of individuality and embracing your imperfections is surprisingly sweet. Even by the studio standards, it's an improvement compared to some of their earlier works like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and Hotel Transylvania. So why is this still on the worst list? Well, funny enough, it's not because of how extreme it can be with its R-rated humor. I find that it's the opposite problem.
The window of nothingness.
If you take away its adult comedy, Fixed is one of the blandest cartoons ever made. It's just a typical talking pets movie that is fully dependent on its novelty of being raunchy and gross. It's like The Secret Life of Pets, but with no flavor. And I'm aware that its comedy is not for everyone. And while I think it occasionally has some funny jokes, if you're not a fan of R-rated provocative humor, that's just gonna be salt to the open wound of this experience.
It hurts so good!
The hate for this may have been exaggerated, but that doesn't change that Fix lacked the balls to be enjoyable. Number 4.
Worst.
Stitchhead. While there have been a bunch of TV specials celebrating the holiday, Halloween doesn't get as much representation from movies as much as Christmas does outside of horror flicks, especially from animation. While there are a few that directly highlight the day, like The Nightmare Before Christmas, people are still waiting to see what the next great animated Halloween feature will be. Stitch Head is not that movie. Based on the graphic novel by Gus Bass, I do understand what the feature wanted to do and how the film's concepts are great materials for animation. The idea of a movie about the monsters created by a mad scientist sounds fun, and it does have a good moral about fame and what it actually means to be loved. There is a good picture that can be made with this. Unfortunately, they ended up being wasted on this botched creation. The problem with Stitch Head is that it is plagued with weak execution that makes the whole experience rather unpleasant. And the more it tries to appeal to kids and make itself look lighthearted, the worse it gets when the comedy is all around awful, and the characters are generally irritating, where their attempt to have charm feel more like additional reasons to why watching this feels like a burden.
No picking without paying!
Keep the change.
I'll even add that the animation itself doesn't help its case either. I know that this wasn't from a major studio, and the team behind it could only do what they can on a small budget. I'll even give the feature that the designs of the monsters themselves are pretty cool, even if they barely appear in the picture and don't even show their abilities. It's not the worst animation from this year, but it's hard to be forgiving to the visuals when their quality is as subpar as its script. It honestly makes me feel like I'm watching an anti-germ commercial, and it could be as annoying as one too.
Viruses and bacteria float all around us. Unlike air fresheners, only new Lysol Air Sanitizer kills the viruses that may cause cold, flu, and COVID-19 in the air. Because scent can't sanitize, Lysol can.
As much as this tries to bring life to a family-friendly movie, Stitch Head came out more like a failed experiment than a roaring monster.
So brave!
Very brave.
He's toast.
Yeah, it doesn't stand a chance.
Number 3. Worst. Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Last Straw. Just when you thought that Disney might have been done with the animated Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies and have them end off on a surprisingly charming note with Cabin Fever, Greg Heffley returned to Disney Plus to show that he is still as wimpy as ever. The most that I can give this movie is that it did try a little bit more than the previous films, where the animation and the comedy got a bit of a boost to keep it away from being the worst of these Disney Plus Wimpy Kid features. However, that still doesn't change that its purpose feels like it's just to be content filler for the streaming platform. On paper, it wants to be a dysfunctional father-son bonding movie, a formula that has proven that it could do very well in an animated feature. But in practice, this franchise is not well equipped to tell that kind of story. The characters, like Greg and his dad Frank, are arrogant jerks who only have themselves to blame for their lives being so miserable, and provide no heart for the viewers to care about them and their situations, while the plot is structured to focus more on the kid's series of mishaps, accidents, and troubles that he gets himself into, than to tell the narrative of Greg trying to prove that he's not a screw-up by getting scout badges.
Yes! See? I didn't need any help.
Even with those slight improvements that I mentioned before, I didn't say that they suddenly became good. They were only able to reach up to be decent at best, yet the franchise's limitations couldn't let this do anything more than to make the picture salvageable. And that's what ultimately held The Last Straw back. It's the fact that it's a Disney Plus Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie. There is a formula to these films that it has to follow, which heavily restricts it from making any significant changes or updates that could improve the feature, resulting in its own concept to become a lost cause.
Hey, Greg, I brought you boys some hot cocoa. Oh, no!
Just by watching Greg continue to fail at life, the best thing this movie did is calling itself The Last Straw to reflect how I'm starting to feel about these films.
Anything else you want to tell me about, Greg?
I think that pretty much covers it.
Number 2. Worst. Sneaks. I'm sure that this was made with good intentions. It wanted to be an animated movie made especially for Black communities with its theme of sneaker culture, And the voice cast is not bad, with its surprising all-star cast like Anthony Mackie, Martin Lawrence, Chloe Bailey, Lawrence Fishburne, Keith David, and more. I can see that its heart is in the right place, but unfortunately, nothing could change how it's hopeless. Imagine if you have something that looks like a Pixar parody, down to the point of having a very similar plot to Toy Story 2, but it somehow forgot that it's a Pixar parody and unironically plays it straight. How can anyone take this movie seriously when its whole concept is about sentient shoes that go on an adventure in New York City? This is what you'd expect what's on TV of cartoon characters when they want to watch cartoons. And it really doesn't help when the story goes exactly how you think it would go, complete with all the tiresome cliches it could possibly think of to build its own narrative, characters that no amount of good acting can prevent them from being annoying, and a collection of terrible shoe puns.
Sneaks don't talk round here. We converse.
And to make matters worse, the animation does not make this movie look good either. Sure, it's from a smaller, lesser-known studio, but the designs either look silly in the wrong ways, like with the shoes, and the people are just uncomfortably weird. But what's even more bizarre is that it can't decide whether it wants the movements to go at a regular 24 FPS or at a lower frame rate. Throughout the film, it constantly flip-flops between the two, where all it does is make it confusing as if it wants to try some Spider-Verse style visual storytelling, but it has no idea how to do it right, especially when they can randomly happen in the same shot.
Oh, I'll show you where to go, bro.
You and your mama?
Oh, my mom was a Louboutin.
Yeah, your mama was from Payless.
Animation may be known for taking ridiculous ideas and turning them into brilliant pictures, but a talking shoes movie is as absurd as it sounds. And like an old used up pair of sneakers, Sneaks just stinks.
Do you trust me? 0.0%!
And the number one worst animated film of 2025 is Smurfs. In the last decade, Sony Pictures set the bar really low for movies based on the Smurfs. Even if they did a better job with The Lost Village in 2017, there was still a lot of room for improvement. But when Paramount stepped in to try a whole new take on Peyo's Little Blue People, not only did they fail as badly as Sony, but some argued that they made something that was even worse. I'd even go as far and say that this was the worst animated film that I went to see in theaters in years. Seriously, I never saw a big screen animated movie that was this terrible since the Playmobil movie at the end of 2019.
Every Smurf has a job, like Grouchy.
I hate having a job.
Influencer.
Smash that subscribe button.
Instead of sticking to an original idea and reimagine the Smurfs in a way that feels fresh and familiar in a fun way, the movie is a complete mess that tries to simultaneously rip off the Sony features, including The Lost Village and DreamWorks Trolls. And just about everything it did was done disastrously. The storytelling is convoluted and disorganized, the characters are cringe, the voice acting is straight up bad, the creative choices make it more confusing, and the only actual joke of the feature is how it considers itself a musical when the few songs it has are not good at all. Even when it comes to the animation, it looks fine at first with a style that stays true to the original comics, but then they have to ruin that as well when the Smurfs occasionally go to the live-action world and look weirdly off-putting.
Whoa, where are we?
It's Paris.
Get out of the way!
But if there's one reason why I put this at number one, it's because of the movie's purpose. Like I said before, even if Sneaks turned out to be trash, it did mean well to make something primarily for Black audiences. Smurfs, on the other hand, is transparently nothing more than a corporate cash grab. A product that was built for profit based exclusively off of what executives think audiences want to see with familiar names like Smurfs and Rihanna without caring about the quality. It's less an actual movie and more something that is defined as content. A soulless video whose existence is just to be monetized and nothing else. And that's what makes Smurfs the #1 worst animated film of 2025.
Well, that was tough to go through. Yet, oddly enough, they are still far from the worst things to happen in the year. But the good news now is that we got all the negativity out of the way, and before we brighten things up with the best list, let's go and take a look at the honorable mentions. As I mentioned before, I've included more animated features in consideration than ever thanks to some additional screeners that I got, meaning that there's going to be a lot of honorable mentions here. By the way, as I was making this, both lists kept on drastically changing throughout because there is a good bunch in here that were close to making it as either the best or the worst. Of course, there are also those that are pretty average that would also end up here no matter what. But regardless of how near or far they are in the top spots, they should at least have a little moment in the spotlight for their part in 2025. And they are...
Dogman! It's shockingly tame for a film based on a Dave Pilkey book, but it is still a cute kids movie on its own. Night of the Zoopocalypse! It's another one of those weak Viva movies, but its attempt of a unique-looking zoo-themed zombie horror flick is pretty cool. Plankton the movie. It feels more like an extended episode of the show, but it's surprisingly fun with some good humor and heart. The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie. A crazy feature-length cartoon that is also the best Looney Tunes movie yet. Predator Killer of Killers, an appetizer between Prey and Badlands, but still an awesome Predator movie on its own. K-Pop Demon Hunters, the epic musical that became the biggest movie on Netflix, but maybe a little overhyped due to the weak directing and many plot holes from the world building. Elio, it may not have the studio's best story, but it did bring back that classic Pixar charm that we all know and love. The Bad Guys 2, a true summer blockbuster where the substance isn't much, but it has all the action and comedy you need for a good time. The Glassworker. It really wants to be a Studio Ghibli movie, but I gotta hand it to the film that its attempt is very well done. Demon Slayer the movie, Infinity Castle, featuring some of the best animated fight scenes of the year and powerful emotional dynamics between the demons and the slayers, even if it doesn't have much of a story. The Twits. It wants to be a Roald Dahl story so badly, but it's not confident in itself to do that well. A Magnificent Life. I love the works of Sylvain Chomet, and the animation here is still stellar, but the storytelling and dialogue are such a letdown. Arco. The story follows the E.T. formula a little too closely, but it knows how to get you emotionally engaged with its world building, music, and animation. In Your Dreams. A great idea for a feature that explores the land of dreams with a lot of heart, but it only presents a fraction of its potential. Scarlet, Mamoru Hosoda's ambitious take on Hamlet, but as beautiful as it looks, it tries to be bigger than what it is. And finally, the SpongeBob movie, Search for SquarePants. The less you're familiar with SpongeBob, the less you'll see how it's copying from the previous films, and the more you can enjoy its nautical nonsense. Since I previously stated that there is a bunch that almost made it on either the best or the worst list, what would happen if I were to expand them into a top 10? Which ones would find themselves in the bottom 5 of each? Well, the worst would also feature Dogman, A Magnificent Life, Night of the Zoopocalypse, the SpongeBob movie, Search for SquarePants, and The Twits, while the best would include Predator Killer of Killers, The Glassworker, The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie, Elio, and Demon Slayer's the movie Infinity Castle. It's not easy to do a top 5 list when a good amount just didn't make the cut, but rather if they lean closer to being good or bad, they still made their own impact that shaped up the year.
Yeah, this plane's trashed.
Number 5. I Am Frank Elda. This is noted to be Mexico's first fully stop-motion animated feature. And with this film, they're off to a solid start. While it was only publicly released in that country during the year, I was fortunate to see it at the Fantasia Film Festival, where the filmmakers were in attendance and answered questions, and got to see up close some of the puppets used in the feature. Not to say that the experience influenced my thoughts on the movie, but the film itself was the reason why I had a fantastic time. Created by the Ambrose brothers, Arturo and Roy, they greatly expanded their HBO Max miniseries to present the true capabilities of its macabre concept. It features an enchanting tale of an aspiring writer who goes into the kingdom of spooks and meets the variety of characters that she wrote in her stories, along with a bit of romance with the prince to add some spice and drama to grab the audience's attention.
Susto.
But the true beauty of I Am Frankelda comes from the imagination unleashed in the Spooks Kingdom. Sure, the picture's quality has a bit of a homemade feel, and it's not fully on par with the major studios like Laika or Aardman, but that doesn't change how the film makes its environment so immersive. It's also worth mentioning that the Ambrose brothers were mentored by Guillermo del Toro, and his influence is in prominent display with all the different monsters who inhabit the kingdom with their own abilities, size, and complex movements, as well as his style of storytelling to present a tale of love and nightmares. Not to mention how it also has a powerful soundtrack to make this a memorable operatic musical.
Quería preguntarte si quisiera ser la pesadillera real.
¿Quedarme aquí?
Frankelda may be a writer of nightmares, but watching her journey across the Spooks Kingdom feels like a wonderful dream.
Soy Frankelda.
Number 4. Little Amélie, or the character of Rain. Ever since those game-changing wins from the Latvian film Flow during the year's award season, including at the Oscars, several movie fans have wondered what indie animated feature is going to be the next Flow. Well, if I'd have to make a guess, my best answer would be Little Amélie. Based on the autobiography by Amélie Nothomb, this is a simple slice-of-life story that packs a powerful emotional punch to get the audience engrossed throughout. Yes, at first, just like raising real children, it can start out rough with the chaos they cause and Amélie having a god complex as a baby who might as well go all out and be like,
"And now I have become death, destroyer of worlds."
But by the time the real movie starts as she grows conscience and speech at age 2, that's when the movie's heart starts to bloom. This might sound crazy, but this is the closest we got so far to a spiritual successor of My Neighbor Totoro. It may not have the same type of fantasy, but it captures the feeling of childlike wonder through the perspective of a little kid as she explores around her Japanese home to experience what surrounds her, like nature and the neighborhood, as they're displayed with colorful whimsy.
C'était le premier printemps de mon existence. La nature s'associe à mon avènement.
But what really makes watching this feel so tender is the bond between Amélie and her caretaker, Nishio-san. Her family is still there, of course, but they also have problems and lives of their own that the girl doesn't fully understand. That's why Nishio-san is more like her second mother, and teaches Amélie about the world around her and how it can be beautiful and tough at the same time, all through a Japanese lens that explores the country's culture and history.
Je vous présente Nishio-san. Elle va venir nous donner un petit coup de main.
T'étais la seule à me voir vraiment telle que j'étais.
It's definitely more different than all the other animated features this year with its simplicity of the narrative and scale, but this is a case of less is more, where all you need is a 2-year-old girl, a Japanese home, and her colorful perspective to make this one of the most heartwarming features of the year.
Les souvenirs restent.
Number 3. Zootopia 2. I consider the first movie to be an absolute masterpiece and one of the best animated movies from Disney. So when Nick and Judy return almost a decade later for their second big investigation, they delivered a sequel that is worthy to be the follow-up of the first. Zootopia 2 not only brought back the elements that made the original great, but it also expanded its concepts to make it feel bigger and more captivating. The mystery makes it engaging to discover the city's secret history with reptiles, the comedy is still as funny as ever, the animation is amazing with more new areas to explore and new types of animals to meet like in the Marsh Market, the action is intense, and it still has a powerful social commentary that highlights some of the biggest problems in our culture. This time, it calls out the oligarchy and how the wealthy corrupts our society in order to gain more power for themselves.
Do you know how many mayors they've already destroyed?
1, 2. I got up to 2.
But of course, Zootopia wouldn't be the memorable picture we all know if it weren't for its great cast. Sure, it may have gotten a little overboard with all of its cameos that keep interrupting the feature, but that's a minor issue when everything else works so well, especially with the dynamic of Nick and Judy. They carry the heart of the feature where the case is not just about finding what happened to the reptiles of Zootopia, but to also prove to the ZPD that they are a great team and have to come in terms with their flaws to ultimately determine if they should work together. Not to mention the addition of enjoyable new characters like Nibbles, Mayor Winddancer, Gary, and more, who provide great voice acting alongside the recurring cast that are still as fantastic as before.
I have to set things right, and when I do, my family will finally be able to come home.
While Disney Animation never had a great history when it comes to creating follow-ups, Zootopia 2 proves to be not just one of their better ones, but an exemplary sequel that knows how to make its familiar ideas feel fresh again. You know it's going to be an exciting animated adventure when Nick and Judy are on the case.
When you two save the city, maybe everyone will see reptiles ain't that different.
Number 2. Nausea 2. Just when Inside Out 2 was able to dethrone the 2019 remake of The Lion King in the previous year to become the highest grossing animated feature, this Chinese movie stepped into the scene to not only outperform the emotions to get that title soon afterwards, but also went on to become the new biggest animated feature in history and the first to cross over $2 billion at the box office, along with having a moment to be among the top 5 highest grossing films of all time. And just by watching this movie, it speaks for itself how it earned its position as the new animation champion. It's not just a sequel that stays true to the spirit of the original, but it exceeds it to display the impressively massive scale of its interpretation of Chinese mythology. And with that kind of material, it provided the movie with a story that is bursting with creativity, beautifully immersive animation, characters who supply a lot of heart, and some of the most epic action that only gets bigger and better as the movie progresses. But what I consider to be the most admirable trait of Nausea 2 is how it has a ridiculously long running time at 144 minutes, yet it's so well crafted that it doesn't feel that long at all. Technically, this is not the longest animated movie of the year, since Infinity Castle is about 11 minutes longer. But as awesome as that film is, I'll admit that I felt exhausted by the time the movie was finished. But with Nausea 2, on the other hand, even with the same level of intensity from the action scenes, the feature is so engaging and can get you so invested in its own world and all the magic that is in store that it can make you forget about its own length and just go along for the ride throughout. And considering how very uncommon it is for an animated film to be over 2 hours, that in itself is an admirable accomplishment. Out of all the animated movies from this year that involves fighting demons, it's the Demon Kid who ended up being at the top as China's biggest cartoon icon. And the number 1 best animated film of 2025 is... Okay, I'll confess that this one might be controversial not because of the movie itself,
but rather if it does count as a 2025 movie, because technically, this had its public premiere on Christmas Day of 2024. However, I'm going by its official global release on Netflix, which was soon afterwards at the start of 2025. So by that account, it does count here. But regardless of when it came out, who else deserved to be called the best than Wallace and Gromit?
That's vengeance. Most foul.
In terms of animated features, the year already peaked just as it started when Wallace and Gromit Vengeance Most Foul was released. Even if this is considered as a 2024 movie, I'd call it the best animated film of that year as well, even more than Inside Out 2 and The Wild Robot. The other sequels on the best list still did admirably well by being pretty close to its legendary original, or did better than its predecessor where it went from solid to great. Vengeance Most Foul, on the other hand, is debatably about as good as the duo's first movie with The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, if not just minorly behind. And considering how the original is one of the most praised stop-motion films ever made, that is an incredible achievement from Vengeance Most Foul.
Well, looks like you've made the cut, Norbert. Better take a bow.
Bowing!
What makes this movie so spectacular is how it found a way to make a feature-length sequel to their iconic short The Wrong Trousers and tell its story with Wallace and Gromit's signature formula to make the elements more effective than before. It features the perfect blend of strong suspense and wonderful comedy that they're known for, along with the familiar characters coming back to deliver that lovable British charm. Especially with Ben Whitehead's performance as Wallace being identical to what Peter Sallis did before.
And if you think that's progress, wait till you see the next thing I'm working on.
And on top of having a great script, the animation is equally as amazing to present Feathers McGraw's revenge on a grand scale by turning the inventor's latest creation, the Smart Gnomes, against him. It really was masterfully crafted to make the feature more emotionally engaging, to both have you laughing with the humor and on the edge of your seat during the action. There were plenty of great efforts throughout the year after this film to make something that could be on its level, but nothing could be on par with the movie that helped further cement Wallace and Gromit's position as the most iconic stop-motion duo in animation. And that's what makes Vengeance Most Foul the #1 best animated film of 2025.
And that's all I've got for the top 5 best and worst animated films of 2025. It's been quite a memorable year where we got some incredible sequels and some solid originals. But then again, while those were the bright spots, 2025 will most likely be memorable for all the wrong reasons outside of animation. But hey, there's a new year, so that means we're about to get a fresh start to hopefully have a better outcome in 2026. Keyword being hope. But as for the animated films that are coming out next year, there will be some anticipated ones, along with even more familiar faces coming back. So, what awaits us in 2026?
Seriously? Another one already? I thought we were done with Shrek-style fairy tale reimaginings. Oh great! Skydance is back! What cringe awaits us this time? Oh, this too, huh? Okay, maybe Brad Bird can make them a good movie. Is it actually going to be released this time? I'm still hyped up for it. If it doesn't copy Zootopia too much, then this could probably ball. Turning Red may have a contender for being the funniest Pixar movie. This probably won't be the best animated film of the year, but I'm still hyped for it. I actually love the fourth movie, so I'm open to the idea that this will be great. Can't go out too long without our regular dose of Minions. Children are still into dinosaurs, right? Not a lot is known about this so far, but I'll keep my eye on it. Now this is an Avatar movie I'm excited for. May look cute at first, but knowing Sean, this has great potential. This will either be amazing or disastrous. Hard to imagine anywhere in between. Listen, we need more original Disney animated films, and I wish this one all the best to come out great. And finally, oh look, another animated property that used to be produced by Sony Pictures is now being handled by Paramount. What could possibly go wrong? See you later, dudes! Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this retrospective 2025, then hit that like button and come subscribe to my channel. You can also join my Patreon to support my work and get some awesome rewards to help you give your year a nice start. Hope you all have a great 2026, and again, until next time, see you later, dudes.
Cheers, me old pal.